Coming up, the Stars and Oilers take a lead in their series after big Game 5 wins. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL. Local experts joining us to go over the playoff matchups from last night in the NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. The Islanders survived a must-win Game 5 on the road. Now they get to go back to New York to try and continue their comeback against the Hurricanes. Our Locked On Islanders host recaps the win from last night that kept New York's season alive.
The New York Islanders hang on and force a Game 6. 3-2 win over the Carolina Hurricanes. Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Were the New York Islanders the better team for most of this game? Not really, but they hung on and took a 3-2 win. Why? Well, for one thing, they wanted it better. They absolutely limited the turnovers, only 5 giveaways in this game, and they blocked 22 shots to 4 for the Carolina Hurricanes. There was a big difference there, and the Islanders were able to at least break even on special teams, killing off all 4 Carolina power plays while still going 0 for 3 on their own. But after a shaky first period, the Islanders scored first and managed to never trail in this hockey game. And Ilya Sorokin was spectacular, so it was just enough to hang on and earn the win. For more, listen to and watch the Locked On Islanders podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
The Dallas Stars took control of their series by shutting out the Minnesota Wild at home. With Dallas up 3-2, both Locked On Stars and Wild look at where things stand going into Game 6.
The Dallas Stars are now in the driver's seat of their first-round series with the Minnesota Wild after a 4-0 win on home ice in Game 5. Hey, everybody, this is Dane Lewis, host of the Locked On Dallas Stars podcast, and the Stars now control their own destiny heading into Game 6 of this series on Friday. The Stars come out and take care of business at the American Airlines Center with a resounding 4-0 win against the Minnesota Wild. The Wild just seemingly no answer for Jake Oettinger, who was phenomenal in this game, saving 27 of 27 shots. And of course, Oettinger getting that much needed goal insurance and getting that insurance early in the game. Tyler Seguin and Jason Robertson both find the back of the net on the power play in the first period. The Stars power play would go 2 for 6. So you'd like to see them execute a little bit more with that many opportunities. But the fact that they were able to do so early in the matchup, I think paid huge dividends for them for the rest of the game. We see Mason Marchment and Ty Dellandrea both get their first points of the postseason, both get their first goals of the postseason. An all-around big team performance from this Stars team. Incredible performances up and down the lineup, from the forwards to defensemen like Miro Heiskanen, who is having a phenomenal postseason so far, up to 6 assists, and also living up to expectations defensively as well. The Minnesota Wild seemingly have no answer for Miro Heiskanen whenever they're in the offensive zone. He's shutting down elite weapons like Kirill Kaprizov, who only recorded 1 shot on goal in this game despite 23 minutes and 11 seconds of on-ice time. But now the Stars need to find a way to muster up the strength to go into St. Paul on Friday and get one more win and close the series out in 6 games rather than come home with the fear of potentially getting eliminated in Game 7 at the AAC. But we're going to talk about this win in its entirety on Wednesday's episode of Locked On Stars. Be sure to tune in. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's amazing how as this series goes on, it just starts to look more and more like last year. Hey, everybody, Seth Topol, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, recapping a 4-0 loss for the Minnesota Wild in Game 5. They now trail 3-2 in this best-of-7 series. Early on, Marcus Foligno called for a major penalty, a 5-minute major, and a game misconduct. And so he was shown the door 2 minutes in. Dallas scored on the power play that resulted from that penalty. They scored on another power play, and they added 2 more goals. Jake Oettinger gets the shutout, and the Wild, pretty much after Foligno left, were totally lifeless out there on the ice. And now we head back to the XL Energy Center with the Wild needing an absolute must-win game. Looking a lot like last year. Bad penalty kill. Big Stars coming up empty. For more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you follow Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
A crucial Game 5 between the Kings and Oilers would put one team just a game away from moving into the second round. Our Locked On local experts tell you who took advantage in Edmonton.
The Edmonton Oilers take their first lead of the series as the floodgates rip open in Game 5. Hi, my name is Brett Holden from Locked On Oilers, and the Edmonton Oilers take their first lead of the series as they left zero doubt in Game 5 as they beat the LA Kings 6-3 at Rogers Place. Now, it was a little bit close after the Edmonton Oilers did take a quick 2-0 lead. It would end up 3-2 after 20 minutes with goals from Evander Kane, Leon Draisaitl, none other than Brett Kulak getting the third goal in the first period. But then after that, it was all Oilers all the time. Nick Bukestad with his first 2-goal game as an Edmonton Oiler, and Zach Hyman scoring in his second straight game as the Edmonton Oilers blow by the Kings, and Stuart Skinner proving why he was trusted coming back in Game 5. Connor McDavid, on the other hand, having a quiet 2-assist night, and the same with Matthias Ekholm and Darnell Nurse, who was named first star of the game. The Edmonton Oilers look to close out the series on Saturday as the series flips back to Los Angeles, where the Oilers look to move on to the second round of the NHL playoffs.
That'll do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NHL. Now that it's the Stanley Cup playoffs, make sure you are subscribed to Locked On NHL and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else to get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.